They're called the Nephilim, an ancient race of giants whose existence is hinted at in the Bible, but then erased from nearly all historical records. While there are a few passing references to them in ancient texts, any large-scale evidence of the Nephilim has been shockingly sparse. So who were these people? Why have they been so thoroughly written out of history? Are they fallen angels, offspring of divine rulers, or perhaps something else entirely? The origins of the Nephilim can be found in Genesis 6:2-4, with the cryptic statement that the Nephilim were born when the sons of God came together with the daughters of men. This passage suggests that the Nephilim were the product of unions between two distinct groups of people. However, it doesn't explain who these supposed sons of God actually were. The phrase itself appears only a few times in the Old Testament, and each instance adds more confusion than clarity. In the book of Enoch, however, a text not included in most modern Bibles, we learn that the sons of God were actually fallen angels. They became curious about human women and chose to leave their heavenly home for earth. With divine power and human fertility, these unions produced offspring that grew to tremendous size, both physically and spiritually. In fact, the Nephilim were described as having a profound knowledge of the secrets of heaven and earth, which made them incredibly dangerous. Their immense wisdom, coupled with their gigantic forms, made them a threat to humanity, according to some scholars. So the angels decided to imprison them in the same way that they had imprisoned the giants. But there's another possibility. Some believe that the sons of God mentioned in Genesis weren't necessarily fallen angels, but rather divine beings, perhaps even gods in their own right. The idea that the Nephilim were the descendants of multiple pantheons of deities isn't a new one. According to this theory, the sons of God were gods like Yahweh, Elohim, Saturn, and many others. During a time when paganism was widespread and people worshipped many different gods, the writers of the Bible used the language of their audience. When describing the Nephilim's parentage, they drew upon local myths and legends that were already well known. The result is a creation story that blends elements of both heaven and hell with humanity and divinity. Now here's where things get really confusing. The sons of God are often referred to as Sethites, which might sound like a small sect of people. But in actuality, the Sethites were supposedly the offspring of Adam and Eve's third son, Seth. Some scholars even speculate that the word Sethite was originally a title meaning simply righteous or godly person. If that's true, then the sons of God may not have been a unique group at all, but just ordinary humans who followed the true God and lived virtuously. According to some scholars, these passages are nothing more than a poetic way of explaining how evil entered the world. For them, the sons of God are angels who fell from grace and chose to live among humans, while the daughters of men are those who welcomed them and bore their children. While the Bible offers us glimpses into the world of the Nephilim, it also leaves us with more questions than answers. Who exactly were these enigmatic figures? What role did they play in the development of human civilization? And why have their stories been suppressed throughout history? Unfortunately, we may never know the full truth about the Nephilim. But by exploring the various theories and pieces of evidence that do exist, we can form our own conclusions about this fascinating lost race. The question of whether the Nephilim were angels, gods, or simply humans is a complicated one. And unfortunately, there's no definitive answer. The Bible itself is vague on the matter, offering only cryptic hints and references that have been interpreted in a variety of ways throughout history. Many scholars argue that the Genesis account of the Nephilim is a metaphor for the corruption of humanity through the introduction of sin. In this view, the sons of God represent those who were once righteous but turned away from the divine path, while the daughters of men are those who willingly or unknowingly participated in this corruption. However, other scholars see the Nephilim as physical beings, literal giants who roamed the earth during a time when humans and divine beings coexisted. Proponents of this view point to ancient texts such as the Book of Enoch, which provide more detailed descriptions of the Nephilim and their origins. According to these texts, the Nephilim were the product of unions between angels and humans, creating beings of immense power and knowledge, but also great hubris and wickedness. It's possible that the truth lies somewhere in between these two interpretations. Perhaps the Nephilim were not merely metaphors or purely physical beings, but rather represented a spiritual and physical duality. They could have been individuals who possessed both human and divine qualities, making them powerful and knowledgeable, but also capable of great sin and corruption. This interpretation aligns with the biblical account of the Nephilim being both tall and wise beyond measure, suggesting a unique race of beings with both physical and spiritual attributes. The enigmatic nature of the Nephilim is further complicated by the fact that their existence is mentioned in other ancient texts outside of the Bible. For example, the Book of Giants, which is part of the ancient Ethiopian text known as the Book of Jubilees, provides an alternate genealogy of the giants, tracing their lineage back to the fallen angel, Azazel. According to this account, Azazel taught humans forbidden knowledge, including the creation of weapons, armor, and other tools of war, which led to widespread violence and bloodshed. The Nephilim, therefore, represent the consequences of humanity's pursuit of forbidden knowledge and the corrupting influence of fallen angels. These extra-biblical accounts offer valuable insights into the beliefs and traditions surrounding the Nephilim in ancient cultures, demonstrating that the concept of giants with divine origins was widespread and deeply ingrained in many societies. By examining these various texts, we gain a more comprehensive understanding of the Nephilim and their significance in ancient religious and cultural contexts. It's important to note that the ancient texts containing these Nephilim narratives were often written long after the events they describe. Therefore, they serve as second-hand or even third-hand accounts, passed down through oral traditions and shaped by the beliefs and perspectives of the scribes who recorded them. This raises questions about the accuracy and reliability of these sources, as well as the possibility that the Nephilim may have been more prominent in earlier, now lost or heavily edited texts. Furthermore, the intentional removal or alteration of certain biblical texts and historical records has led to speculation that there may have been a deliberate attempt to erase or distort the narrative surrounding the Nephilim. This could have been done to suppress potentially scandalous or heretical information that has contradicted official religious doctrine, or to protect the authority of religious institutions by discrediting or ignoring alternative beliefs and traditions. Such censorship would be consistent with the historical patterns of suppression and control exhibited by religious and political authorities throughout history. The fact that ancient texts have been lost or tampered with makes it difficult to separate fact from fiction. When it comes to the Nephilim, it's possible that the truth may never be fully known due to the intentional obscuring of historical records. However, by piecing together the available evidence from various sources, scholars and researchers have been able to reconstruct a partial picture of the Nephilim and their place in ancient religious and cultural beliefs. Despite the challenges posed by incomplete and potentially biased sources, the study of the Nephilim remains a compelling and fruitful area of research for those seeking to understand the history of ancient religions, mythology, and folklore. The enigmatic nature of the Nephilim continues to captivate the imaginations of many, and the search for answers regarding their identity, origins, and ultimate fate may continue for many years to come. The Bible offers us glimpses into the world of the Nephilim, but it also leaves us with more questions than answers. Who exactly were these enigmatic figures? What role did they play in the development of human civilization? And why have their stories been suppressed throughout history? Unfortunately, we may never know the full truth about the Nephilim, but by exploring the various theories and pieces of evidence that do exist, we can form our own conclusions about this fascinating lost race. Thank you for watching. Please share your ideas below and subscribe for more videos about ancient civilizations. See you next time.